Okay, I'm going to call this to order. It is 7:10. The Evanston Preservation Commission, we have a quorum of 8 commissioners present. The City of Evanston's Preservation Ordinance empowers this body to safeguard our community's historic, cultural, and architectural heritage. The Commission encourages public participation and affords due process through public hearings on proposed landmark designations and applications for certificates of appropriateness. The ordinance requires commissioners to apply specific review standards and includes the ability to consider economic hardship and special merit as needed. We ask anyone who wishes to address the Commission to sign in and indicate the discussion item, designation, or application to be addressed. The first order of business tonight will be public comment on items listed under discussion on the meeting agenda. For old and new business, the chair of the commission will ask staff to read each case into the record. Once a case has been read into the record, the applicant presents an overview of the proposal, including evidence and testimony to support the applicable standards being met. The commissioners will then ask questions of the applicant. Following the questioning period, members of the public may speak toward the application, keeping their comments to 3 minutes or less. Following public comment, the applicant will have the opportunity to respond to any evidence or testimony against the application as it relates to the standards for review. After all parties have had an opportunity to make objections or corrections, the commission closes the record and proceeds to deliberation and then a motion to approve the proposal or approve with conditions. A simple majority of the quorum present is required for a motion to carry. First order of business is public comment. We're going to start. Are there any members of the public here in person wishing to speak on items under the discussion agenda, which is disaster recovery and debris management plan and upcoming October historic preservation newsletter? Okay, seeing none, are we? We also got a couple of comments in writing on items that were not on the discussion agenda regarding the Ryan Field situation. Did all the commissioners get those comments and have a chance to read them? Okay, great. Did we get any comments in writing relating to the discussion agenda?
No.
Okay. All right, seeing none, under old business, we will start with 1404 Judson Avenue. Landmark, LHD 23 Pres 0098. Could staff please read that into the record?
1404 Judson Avenue, a landmark in the Lakeshore Historic District. Case number 23 PRES 0098. Errol Kirsch, applicant and architect on behalf of the homeowner, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the home's north elevation fenestration and construct a single-story addition and covered basement entryway at the rear volume of the home's north elevation. The applicant further requests the following major zoning variations to expand a non-conforming structure as it relates to bulk, Code Section 6652, a rear yard setback of 3.75 feet where 30 feet is required, and the existing legally non-conforming condition is 2.75 feet, Code Section 6828A4, and building lot coverage of 33.25% where 30% is the maximum permitted and 31% is the existing legally non-conforming condition, Code Section 6827. The Preservation Commission is the determining body for their certificate of appropriateness, Code Section 288. The Preservation Commission may, at its discretion, make a recommendation to the Land Use Commission, the determining body for the proposed zoning relief, Code Section 2194E. Mr. Kirsch, when you're ready.
Good evening, and thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present our responses to your concerns and to relate to the changes, frankly, that we've made, and hopefully you all have copies of those changes and have had the opportunity to review them. They were submitted first in writing on 7/6, then the renderings for the changes on 7/25, and also submitted to the folks in the neighborhood who were concerned and spoke at the last session, and that was done on August 15th to those participants. We asked for comment or responses. None were received. We're here this evening, as I said, to review the alterations and the relationship of those alterations to the standards that you folks have called out in the previous session. We're here seeking the certificate of appropriateness and also, with due respect, a recommendation to the Zoning Commission or the Land Use Commission for what we're trying to do here that we believe preserves and respects the historical nature and preservation of this facility. The first alteration that was done is that the sidewalk, Cabe, if you could put up the site plan. Thank you. The first alteration was, I'm sorry.
What page is that for those of us following along?
Looks like page 40 in the packet.
Page 40, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Pardon me. The sidewalk entering the ADU new entry on the north wall has been moved southward from the north property line to condense any movement on the site from that property line on the north. Second to that, we were able to reduce the size, the length in this particular case, not by much, but a foot in its length to make it 15'8" instead of the previous dimension of 16'8". We believe that in doing so, and in keeping with our initial submission to you folks of depressing this addition below the grade, kept it at a moderate height, and I would say left the primary structure as the primary focus. We also were instructed, as a matter of fact, in the approval process downstate at the Historical Commission, to use the same materials. Therefore, in this particular case, you're not seeing any distinction of the addition from the original. The outside shingle, the roof, the siding, the coloration, and in now the depression, we feel keeps that at a position on the site and in its size and scope of a lesser degree than the primary structure. As a suggestion made, I think, by one of your members, we looked into the position and location of the interior stair, which accesses the addition from the kitchen area. We changed that stair from a linear traffic movement to a circular movement. Thereby, we were able to eliminate the structure on the exterior of the building, which encased that structure when it was a linear stair. That allowed us to reshape the exterior north view of the addition, and you can see it there without any entourage in the lower right-hand corner, and simplify the elevation by eliminating that portion and making the height more consistent, lower, and quite frankly, more consolidated on the picture. We also lowered the height of the canopy over the ADU entry to make the structure feel, the new structure, more consistent as a singular element as opposed to a combination of three elements on the facade. I think that particular item relates directly to the construction standard number 1, okay? I believe that we have reduced the height, we've consolidated the form and structure, we've made it, in my opinion, more consistent with what the original structure is. We have viewed another hunt structure in the community, and there was, I think, a comment made last time that the projection, the roof line, the flatness of that roof in our addition might not be in keeping with the original structure. Frankly, it is in keeping with this structure and other, in particular, Hunt's home as his structure. Battered surface and flat section to keep the profile down. We've come to you with a combination here of an ADU unit which reflects the owner's interest in adding some rental capacity in the lower level. In part, this is for the purpose of activating that lower level, as well as being conducive to that ordinance, which is asking for lower income opportunity for rental, and at the same time assists in the need of accomplishing the overall budget to renovate and restore this structure, and at the same time provide for the owner a space within the structure, because we're limited when 1,000 square feet for that ADU unit, for her to replicate exterior trim, alter and restore window sashes, and do interior trim, which is frankly a higher costing per square foot element in the budget. It helps to fulfill that need to make a complete restoration of this project. It's necessary, as is that space in the basement, to accomplishing that end. There are no other places in this structure for this office. She's obligated, as part of her work, to be private. And at this time, I'd like to correct an error of mine. I indicated in the certificate of need that the public, in the form of clients coming to this structure, would be a necessity. That's not the case. All of my clients' work is done on video, audio, and in private. She'll detail that in a statement she'll make to you tonight. But my error was thinking that there was a need for public access. There isn't any. It's all done within house, private, and records must be kept in that same private location. Let's move on, if we will, to the construction standard 6 and to some degree 8. I think we've established the change, if you will, consolidation of the structure and complying with Section 6 or Standard 6. In Section 8 or Standard number 8, the roof slope becomes an issue, and that same consolidation of the structure is also referred to in that standard. We believe we've met that standard, frankly, initially but even more so with the alterations we've put before you. Section or standard number 10 is the scale of the structure. Initially, we depressed it. We also followed the form of the existing roof structures. We've made this addition as quiet and as simple as possible, at the same time making it private for the business use it's intended for. I believe that the natural landscape. Kate, could you put up the perspectives, please? There's, leave it at shot one, okay? There's the north surface seen from the northeast. Those are existing bush, tree, and shrub forms. They will remain. You're not seeing the addition in this particular case, which will cover a portion on the far right and lower side. Would you go to the second photograph, please? Now you see the addition. We've kept the two windows in the kitchen, again, due to the fact that we've depressed the addition. And you're, at this point, having difficulty seeing the ADU unit, okay? The walking line that I mentioned earlier is on the south side of that shrub line. So that will remain. Please go to the next slide. I've had the illustrator cut the shrubs off to give you a view of what's behind them, a fuller view. You can see there's windows on the north side of the addition, one on the east, and then the canopy over the entry to the ADU unit. Please go to the next slide. There should be one more, I think. Again, that's the cut-down view of the shrubs, allowing you to see the full impact of the addition, both to the office and the ADU entry. Okay, would you go back to the one with the shrub line? There you go, and the addition. That's the result, and that is probably fall of last year, okay? It's not in full bloom to begin with. We're doing our best to maintain that buffer, that mediating, if you will, portion of the landscape to give some relief, if you will, on that north elevation. I'd like to add one standard, number 12, to this discussion. And I think it's really appropriate here because the original qualities, I think, go without saying. The architect, his design should be respected, should be kept, should be the main force of this evaluation, if you will. I think in the state's review, they made it very, very clear to duplicate all the materials, all the textures, and the slopes of the roofs. We've done that. I'm not sure you folks are aware of the fact that we could have put this addition closer to the front of the existing building. Doing so would have eliminated the need for a major variation. However, doing so would have been contrary to the conservation and the preservation, and finally the respect that this building deserves. I frankly practice a good deal of this type of work and contemporary work. However, I think we all have to make a commitment to respect what's there, okay? Not just take it down when it's possible, but when you do work with it, give it its just due. I believe we've done that. I thank you for your patience in hearing our two presentations. I'd like to ask Ms. Harper to clarify that one statement, if we might, about her type of work and how it relates to the building. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the commissioner questioning now, and then we'll have public comment after that.
Would that be allowing her to make that statement then?
If you could come into the microphone and just ask your question.
I'm asking, is it possible for Ms. Harper to make her statement now as part of our presentation?
Okay, if you would like to just go ahead and come up, and if you, have you signed in?
I didn't.
Okay. If you,
Would you like me to?
is there a sign-in sheet there?
If there's one there,
There is.
please, and then also state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Of course. Why don't I'll do this quickly and then fill this out.
There's no time limit since you're part of the application
Okay,
proposal, so just go ahead and say what you need to say.
thank you. Okay, good evening, members of the commission, Mr. Sterling, Mr. Ruiz. I'm Brooke Harper. I'm the owner at 1404 Judson. And Errol asked me to briefly explain how I'll use the addition and why it's needed. I'm an administrative law judge for a state agency. I work primarily from home, doing hearings by phone and video. On a rare occasion, a hearing might be done in person, but when that's done, I do it in state office space. I have no clients aside from the state of Illinois, and so no clients or members of the public do come to my home or will come to my home for my work. The hearings are somewhat sensitive. They involve allegations of child abuse and neglect, and so it's very important to do them in a private, confidential setting to protect the privacy of all involved. They also have to be done aloud, though, because the proceedings are audio recorded. And so those two things put together make it important to try to do that work as far as you can from the residential parts of the house. And that's why we've tried to put this addition off to the side, away from any residential use of the house. Errol made a brief reference to budgetary concerns, and I'll just add to that briefly, which is to say I love owning a historic home, but I do plan to continue working in the public sector for the foreseeable future, and so I have to be cautious about expenditures for restoration. You might have noticed that there's a space designated in the basement as a workshop, and Errol referenced the fact that I've done some restoration work on the home, and I will continue to do that, and I'll need to participate in that work to make it possible to do what we want to do to fully sort of restore the inside of the house going forward. So I think that's all I really need to say at this point. Thank you for your time, and I'll thank you for hearing our application.
So does that conclude your presentation? Do you have any? Yes, okay. So now the commissioners will ask you questions. So any commissioners would like to ask the applicant some questions? Go ahead.
I have a question. I guess in the front elevation, there was a window that was for egress. Is there now a staircase that's leading towards that? Or is that a door now?
Are you referring to the egress window from the basement?
Yes, from the basement.
Thanks. Yeah, I neglected to make a statement about that. I noticed on our original presentation to you folks that our recess of the land down to the sill height required for exiting at 3 foot above the basement floor went over onto the neighbor of the adjacent property at 1400 Judson. We've corrected that, and in your current plans, we honor the property line as the center of the demising wall between the two units or homes, and therefore made that correction. So I hope that answers your question. It will have landscaping, a terrace down of plantings, and a simple mushroom low wattage light.
So the terracing would be similar to what you're proposing also by the addition, right? It's similar, right?
That's correct. On the north side, we try to include a depression and terracing of the land, fully landscaped and lit, as opposed to what you might normally have seen as a corrugated semicircular steel shell that's driven down to allow the window to go down to the proper height.
Did you have anything more to ask? Okay. Stuart, did you have something you wanted to ask? Commissioner Cohen, did you have? Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, we will turn to public comment. Is there anyone in person who would like to speak? All right.
We'll start with Ann Trumpeter, followed by Dan Hartnett.
So you'll have 3 minutes, and we'll have it in front. It should be in front of you there.
It is,
Okay.
thanks.
Go ahead.
I'm Ann Trompeter. I live at 1422 Judson Avenue. I am not an architect, but I have looked at other Myron Hunt buildings in Evanston recently to compare this famous architect's work with what is being proposed on one of his more notable buildings. Houses by Myron Hunt that I looked at are 1140 Forest, 1045 Judson, and 1032 through 1034 Michigan, which is also a duplex or double house, much like the project at 1404 Judson. I can only say that what is being proposed looks extraordinarily inappropriate in its massing and busy roof lines. It's a very small and abnormally kind of small assembly tacked onto a really lovely building that is something even a layperson like me can see feels frankly clumsy and not in keeping with the rest of the house or with Myron Hunt's other works. In fact, now that I see that it's going to be below grade, part of it, that makes it feel even stranger to me, frankly. I don't understand why it's necessary to introduce these multiple elements that are not complementary to the original architectural style, simply to achieve putting an apartment in the basement, which can be entered actually from an existing entrance already. I would respectfully ask that the commissioners take a critical look at the proposal, which I believe is not conforming to the city's own preservation standards. Specifically, it would seem to me that this project does not satisfy items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 10 of the standards for review of alteration. Additionally, the project does not seem to satisfy items 1, 2, 6, 10, 11, and 12 of the preservation standards for new construction and additions to existing buildings. I highlighted them here. Thank you.
Dan Hartnett.
Good evening. I'm Dan Hartnett. I reside at 1412 Judson, which is the property immediately to the north of the subject property here. I wish to raise 2 points and to pose a question as well. On the first point, both of Mr. Sterling's reports, and the reports plural, and the 1978 Statement of Significance, which can be found at page 47 of tonight's packet, identify the structure as identify the structure's exemplification of design as a virtue. The Statement of Significance lays stress on the discipline of horizontality and notes that the horizontal massing approaches the prairie style. While these comments reference the front of the structure, I invite you to consider them as to the north face of the building. The image at page 44 of the packet, and Mr. Sterling, could you please call that up for us? Shows that Myron Hunt used an austere horizontality as an ordering principle for that side of the building too. I'd like to think that if Myron Hunt saw the north face of 1404 Judson today, he'd recognize that it looks just as it came from his pen in 1899. My second point is that we are glad to hear Mr. Kirsch cite Construction Standard 12, because I wanted to invite that to the Commission's attention too. But we draw a very different conclusion from him. To paraphrase it, for additions to existing structures, the distinguishing original qualities or character of a property or structure should be preserved. I submit to you that tacking on this box destroys, not preserves, those distinguishing characters of horizontality that Myron Hunt strove 123 years ago to impart. Finally, the question. I'm confident there are some in this room who say, why should this owner not be able to do as she sees fit with her property? Part of the answer is that when each of us took title to landmark buildings in a historic district, we reaffirmed our commitments to Evanston and its citizens that we would protect buildings having special architectural significance. Nothing about this addition is appropriate. I invite you to look at the image at page 46 of your packets. The boxes that the applicant proposes to install on the north face would mar Myron Hunt's use of horizontality.
10 more seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you. On balance, considering all of the factors that the City Council has commended to this Commission's consideration, the Commission ought to decline to issue the certificate of appropriateness in this application.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public here to speak?
Nancy Lisgar.
For 23 years, my husband and I have owned 1400 Judson Avenue, the house sharing a 124-year history and, of course, a foundation, walls, and roof with the property under discussion tonight. People who know me well will tell you that I would go to almost any length to avoid speaking in public or to engage in conflict of any kind. And our dealings with Ms. Harper, our neighbor at 1404 Judson, have always been cooperative, including joint decision-making on a project a few years ago to replace the roof over our double house. And yet, after weeks of silence on this matter, I have decided to speak out tonight to object to the changes Ms. Harper wishes to make to our shared landmark building. In short, this project is antithetical to my interests, my husband's interests, our family's interests. Without a doubt, the potential impacts of excavation, demolition, and construction to our side of this wood frame structure are worrisome and I believe worthy of special attention since any resulting damage to the structural integrity of our home would be a consequence not of our own actions, but of those of other parties. In other words, our property would be involuntarily subjected to potential harm. In addition, construction of the proposed addition would likely affect the value of our attached home adversely. And finally, the construction of a basement ADU there would preclude us from ever adding an ADU to our own home, permanently depriving us of the same opportunity to earn rental income that Ms. Harper wishes to capitalize on. Furthermore, while I greatly appreciate her desire to build a dedicated office space, there are already 5 bedrooms in the home, one of which is on the 3rd floor, away from the other bedrooms and away from common living spaces. Converting that bedroom, or any of the others for that matter, with the added presence of locks, white noise machines, and other features, could meet her stated privacy and security needs without, without compromising an architecturally significant structure. The double house at 1400 and 1404 Judson is one of over 30 residences in Evanston designed by Myron Hunt, none of which, I repeat, none of which has had its exterior altered in this major way. That is, up until now, no one has corrupted the architectural integrity of a Myron Hunt building in Evanston. To allow such a degradation now would be highly objectionable in its own right, I believe. Perhaps even more importantly, it would set an unfortunate precedent that the city of Evanston could regret for years to come. Thank you.
Bruce Styler.
Never follow good speakers. I'm Bruce Styler, and I live with my wife Nancy at 1400 Judson. And to begin, none of my remarks will be personal. My family has been cordial neighbors since 2016 when Brooke bought the property. We certainly hope that will continue. Yeah. My first objection to this project is aesthetic. There is nothing to this addition that enhances Hunt's building. Rather the opposite. It significantly alters the character of Hunt's careful massing of volumes, his ability to make a large building not at all hulking. It seems that its main virtue, as mentioned in the application, is that with shrubbery, it will be invisible from the street. Of all of Hunt's 30 homes in Evanston, none have been subjected to this diminution. Approving this project would set a dangerous precedent for the future. On a practical note, this is a 124-year-old wood frame structure with many common elements. We naturally worry about the effects of construction, the damage that could be done by a backhoe excavating for an addition. The demolition and construction is unknown. We're also concerned about what effect this would have on our property values. One final note, there is a simple solution that would provide privacy and security while avoiding the significant cost of construction and the minor and major aggravations of any building project. An office could be rented. Thank you, Paul.
Amanda Hartnett.
I also live at 1412 Judson. I've lived in Evanston in 3 different houses in several historic districts for 57 years. In all that time, I have never objected to anyone's plan to do anything inside their house or out until now. But this is not removing an old screen porch or creating a backyard space or expanding a kitchen built in the 1800s. Many of us were subject to that. Between 1966 and 2016, I was a friend and guest many times at 1404 Judson, and I know that there are rooms easily situated for security, privacy, soundproofing that can be used as an office space. The state of Illinois, the owner-stated employer, does not require its employees to build additions to their homes to do their jobs. The owner's been using existing space to work in for years. It's both economically unnecessary and unreasonable to expect us to accommodate this addition when she can and has accommodated herself inside the house. Her architect has stated on a number of occasions that this is in the rear of the property. It is not. It is on the side. There is no rear to this property, just a little gangway. So there will be no outdoor space for tenants. There's no garages. There's no parking. The plans with the entrances and the additions and the walkways shrink that small side yard even further and constitute an incursion on our side, an interruption of our well-being, and threats to our safety. There's no fencing, and most of the shrubbery pictured, some of which on my side is a century old, belongs to us, not to Ms. Harper. We also hear that nothing can be seen from the street, but we don't live on the street. We live next door. We lose privacy as this becomes a public walkway with delivery and public entrances on our side. We have no confidence that there will not be debris and dust and toxic substances that float across that very short perimeter. National preservation standards are to preserve and protect unique structures, not to allow alteration for commercial profit in a residential neighborhood. I know this as my parents were two of the people involved in the founding of the Preservation League of Evanston. Everything we've gotten from the owner, the architect, the assorted plans varies each time in the telling. Lack of consistency does not promote confidence. We cannot trust that this will be taken care of with due diligence during construction or with the 3 rentals proposed. Exchanges between us over the last months by email, by text, or in person have contained no mention of hardship, just a determination to tap into a secondary income market. We should not be the unwilling victims of her desire to enhance an already second income, which she's had, and now give her a third. The owner recently stated she needed to alter the historic home in order to pay to preserve it. To my Vietnam-era heirs, that's the equivalent of, we had to destroy this village in order to save it. An appalling misuse of preservation ethics.
10 seconds more.
Once done, if you allow this, that cannot be undone to our block of single-family homes. And when I asked her if these were going to be affordable units in the ADU, she said, no, I'm doing this to make money, and that's a quote.
Madam,
This is not
I'm
hardship.
so sorry.
That is market rate.
We're over time.
That is market rate opportunism. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of our list of people who have signed up to speak on this matter. Is there anyone else here in person? Okay. In that case, would the applicant like to come and respond?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to respond. I think there are multiple comments being made negatively against the project. I'll try to summarize them and be as concise as I can. One is the use of that north side and additional traffic, some note for concern of incursion, safety, and construction, whether it be noise or the potential of damage during that construction. Any construction site, and in particular this site with a shared demising wall, will have to provide certificates of insurance and certificates directly to the neighbor next door, and if desired, the neighbor to the north. As far as the responsibility of this applicant being able to complete the construction. The funds are presently committed to, not an issue of question. They have been committed to. Bids have been taken. The amount is within the budget. And those same contractors and the general contractor would be required to provide certificates of insurance and direct certificates holding harmless anybody choosing to make a point of their concern. There's nothing I wish to comment about the reasons or the income or the applicant's view of doing something which not only protects the building, but frankly, I think adds to the value of the building. I would dispute any claim of a lower valuation to the home that is adjacent or to the home to the north. This is a duplex. There are many other examples of Mr. Hunt's work. I cannot attest to all 30 of them and whether they've ever had any alteration on the exterior, but I do believe that what we're doing here is consistent what his concept of massing, proportion, scale, texture, color, and form would be. I think that would be a complete response to their remarks. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. So are there additional questions from the commissioners? I had a brief question. Just a clarification. This addition is on the applicant's side of the building, correct? She owns that side of the building, and then this addition is coming off of that side. It is not being
Correct.
added to someone else's side of the building, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, seeing no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will now turn to deliberation. Go ahead, Commissioner Cohen.
Cade, can you put up page 41? Okay. I'm going to say a bunch of things, and not all of them are going to be appropriate for me to say. First of all, while I consider Chris Hartzell at the Historical Center to be probably the authority on Myron Hunt's work here in Evanston, a book I wrote a couple of years ago does have the only published biography of Myron Hunt, so I know a little bit about him. Do I want to see this house altered in the way in which he's shown? No. We ask these people to come back. The addition that they're showing is much improved over the last time they were here. Our purview is to read the standards, look at the material presented to us, and decide whether it meets those standards. Having said that, I would say to all the people that testified tonight is that we're not the final say in this matter. The property is, by present zoning standards, overbuilt, and they need a major zoning variation to be able to do this. So if you guys show up at the zoning hearing and say what you said, I can't imagine that the Zoning Board of Appeals will in fact grant this variation. Okay? I'm looking at the basement plan, and I would like to compliment you. I think the ADU unit in the basement is very skillfully planned. And the question I would have about the plan that's shown on the screen is the room in the basement that the circular stair comes down into, which is in the corner of the existing house, is actually just slightly bigger than the office space which is being built out to the north. So my question is, what is that room, and why isn't that room, since it's slightly bigger than the addition, why isn't that room usable as the office space that you feel the need to create? The stair going down, the circular stair going down from the kitchen area could easily access that space with no dramatic changes to the rental unit in the basement. Or if you wanted to simplify the plan even further, you could rework the back stair going down to the basement, which is shown in the earlier plan, by entering, putting a door into your unit at the top of that stair, and then reworking the stair as it comes down into the basement to have it be the main access to the rental unit in the basement, completely eliminating the construction of the stair and the canopy, accessing it from the north side.
Commissioner Cohen, may I ask you a question? When you said earlier plan, did you mean the previous page?
Yes.
Okay, so now those comments were for page 40. Thank you.
Yeah, it's page
It's page
page
40.
40, which shows a door onto an intermediate landing, which I'm assuming is one step above grade, and then there's steps up to the kitchen, and then a run of stairs that go down to the basement. And that could be easily reworked to serve the ADU if you wanted to eliminate the concrete work and the concrete stairs and the cover that's shown on the north side. It seems to me that that would give you the rental ADU. It would make all of your neighbors very happy, and you would be remodeling that room in the basement, and that would be your office. I think it's inappropriate for the commissioners to tell people how to do things or to tell architects how to design stuff, but this seems to be so contentious. And I happen to think that Myron Hunt is a really underappreciated, amazing architect, and that the building would be better without an addition on the side of it. Thank you. Thank you.
May I just add to that? I mean, when I was reading the zoning analysis, just to understand the situation of the house and, the addition in terms of that, I mean, you did say it is overbuilt. Yes, I do understand that the zoning code probably didn't exist when this was built, but zoning codes don't create lot lines. And so, and then it also did say here that, that it was, an alleged hardship appears self-created. And so I guess, I mean, that kind of just, to me, puts into, question the need for this addition if it can be feasibly done, like Commissioner Cohen just said, that they could rework the basement spaces to accommodate the ADU and the office space inside the basement without the addition, then thereby, not requiring a major variation and drawing this whole neighborhood contentious, debate over if it is needed or not. And so I think that, I do think, we're supposed to keep to the standards, but this is tied to the zoning. And so at the previous meeting, I did say that, other commissioners cited 5 standards for why the project wasn't, didn't meet the standards. And I do applaud the architect for coming back with a better design, but because this design is tied to this zoning, I still kind of don't feel comfortable. So.
Sarah, can I add something here? I think that you should, in fact, if you feel strongly, and if this is approved by us, go to zoning. My understanding is that you, in fact, do have an argument and a case to present to zoning. I've argued lots of cases on the North Shore in front of zoning boards of appeal, and the hardship that you have is not the fact that you can't get some income from finishing off your basement or have a home office. The hardship is that this house predates the zoning ordinance, and that because of the way it is built, which you had nothing to do with, the zoning ordinance now restricts you from doing something that other property owners within the same zoning district are allowed by that ordinance to do, which is to make an addition to your house. Had you built the house and filled up the zoning lot or built it to the setback lines, then obviously you couldn't go in and argue that there was a hardship based on that, because you would have created it. It's like the old joke about the guy who killed his parents throwing himself on the mercy of the court as an orphan.
I'm going to, thank you, Commissioner Cohen. I'm going to, I just as a couple of reminders. First of all, the zoning situation and the standards review, preservation standards review are two separate things. Right. And which has been noted. So I think we can return to the review of the standards. My understanding is that the issue of need and stuff is not part of that conversation. Yeah. So I would like to encourage the commissioners to talk about the standards, what you think about the applicant's new proposal. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few things to say. First of all, I'm glad the neighbors came out, and it was great to see the architect's plan. I think it was much improved from last time. I'm very familiar with Myron Hunt. I live next to a Myron Hunt home. I live across the street from a Myron Hunt home. I was just, while reviewing this, considering as a neighbor how I might feel if one of my neighbors proposed, a comparable type of addition to this home. I do feel uncomfortable with this addition. I do feel like the below grade fact of this looks unusual. I know that it is obscured somewhat by landscaping, but I also know that as part of our job, we're not supposed to take into consideration landscaping or fences or things like that, which are very temporary, because those can be removed quite easily. So we can't, that is not part of our factor when we look at the addition here. So for me, I think it doesn't fit the standard of construction for height. It feels awkward to me, like the low height piece. So standard 1 for me, I don't feel like it fits, and then standard 12 for review of construction.
Can I clarify, you're talking about standard 1 for
Height?
review of construction?
Yeah.
And then 12
Yeah,
for
the
construction?
height, yeah, because it just feels like the height, it's not sympathetic to the overall design, the Myron Hunt design, in my opinion. I also just want to say, I know I'm going to focus on our job, which is reviewing our standards, but since zoning is something that is brought to us, I just want to mention that some of the arguments about devaluing your home, that isn't something that we look at, but that is a zoning standard. So if this moves forward, that's something, people should be familiar with the zoning standards being different than our standards. And then I also just wanted to mention something, just a different point to what Commissioner Cohen mentioned about a hardship. I personally don't think it's a hardship with the current zoning laws when you buy a house knowing the zoning laws and the zoning laws were in effect when you purchased the house. So for me personally, that's not something that's a hardship. That's all I had to say.
Other comments from commissioners?
Would it be helpful just to quickly go through the 5 that we cited and just see if they meet, if everyone agrees that they've improved? So, I mean, we've addressed 1. So there's construction 6, 8, and 10. So 6 was the rhythm, and I guess that was because now it's all contained kind of in one volume, or appears to be one volume. 8, let's see, is the roof shapes was because there were 3 roofs before, but now it appears to be one. And then 10 is the scale of the structure. I guess it's similar in size, but more, I guess, lower in height, right? I'm just wondering if everyone agrees that those standards have been met.
I was one of the commissioners that was quite critical of some of the standards that been met last time due to the different heights of the various zones. And I do feel that this reevaluation of the design has eliminated the majority of those concerns. I understand the kind of squat weirdness of it being semi-submerged, but I also understand exactly why that's done, to preserve the original windows in the kitchen. And if anything, that volume actually emphasizes the horizontality of that facade because it's low and long. So for me, I just wanted to say that I think that we've picked up a lot of what was brought last time.
Other comments?
I guess I have a question. So what happens if the Preservation Commission votes to approve a COA, and can it then also make a recommendation to the Land Use Commission zoning?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, but it's not obligatory, right?
Correct. It's
Yeah.
not obligatory, but I think those two they're very much separate. They would be separate motions. They have separate standards. You do have a set of standards for making recommendations to the Land Use Commission. The one that you seem to be focusing on is the need, whether it's needed or not. The other is just whether it's appropriate or not. You can disconnect the 2 requests, so you can make a positive recommendation on just the setback, which seems to have more context or is more material to the preservation concerns in the building lot coverage, or you could make no recommendation at all.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find, where in the packet was it that long description of the separating the and the or? Oh, here, I found it.
Somewhere
It's on
golden and red, I
page
think, because I
14.
wanted to distinguish between what was in the packet previously.
So I do understand that we've asked the applicant to come back with a design, and we've all seemed to agree that it has met the preservation standards, but personally, I think that we could do that and also make a recommendation to the Land Use Commission that, as designed, I don't think that it should be approved on the grounds of the zoning.
So I would like to suggest that if the deliberation over the standards review has concluded, then we should go ahead and make a motion, and then we can talk about the land use zoning part. Thank you. Carlos, did you have something to say?
No, I was going to refer to the determination of your special uses and variations. There are only 3 standards that you need to focus on, despite of what the discussion has been. That's all.
So, but they're 2 separate things. So I would, if any commissioners have anything more to say about the standards review, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, we can entertain a motion for that.
And you can continue to deliberate the variations if you want. I think I see some people that might want to do that as well. So you can make the
Right,
motion to approve,
Yep.
and then it doesn't end the case necessarily, if that's a concern.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness? Okay, seeing none, hold on.
I just wanted to say, I would love to hear from other commissioners who haven't spoken, what their thoughts are on the addition, if it meets the standards as was revised today.
We're still talking about the preservation, the standards for preservation,
For the
right?
COA,
Right,
yeah.
for the certificate of appropriateness. So does anyone have anything more to say?
I've already said what I don't think it meets it. I mean, and I know the argument is they came back, they improved it. I 100% agree with that. I just think we couldn't have necessarily known what our reaction was until we saw the revision.
Right. So if we're not interested in deliberating anymore, then we should just vote, and then we'll know how we feel about it. Is there any more deliberation on this? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion on the COA? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 1404 Judson Avenue landmark LHD 23 Pres 0098. Errol Kirsch, applicant and architect, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the home's north elevation fenestration and construct a single-story addition and covered basement entryway at the rear volume of the home's north elevation. The applicant further requests the following major variations. I'm going to step that back. It has to, yeah. I'm gonna stop there because that's related to the certificate of appropriateness. Applicable standards, alteration 1 through 10, construction 1 through 8, and 10 through 15, and code section 6-15-11-5 A, B, and C. Do I have a second to? Second. Okay. Yes, I think we should take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Ziem?
It's just for the COA, correct?
Correct.
Not
Just for the
zoning?
certificate of appropriateness.
So point of clarification, is code section 6.
It's related to the variations.
Okay, it's the zoning. Okay, thanks.
But that's okay. This is just for the certificate of appropriateness right now. Commissioner Ziem?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Morris? Commissioner Reinhold?
Aye.
Chair Driller?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen?
I find that it meets the standards as written, so I vote aye.
Commissioner Klein?
No.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Bose-Carlson? No. Motion passes 5-3.
Okay. Moving on, now we have to decide whether we want to make a recommendation for the variation. Is there some deliberation that we would like to have?
Does this require a motion being made? Or
It does.
It doesn't require a motion. You don't have to make a motion one way or the other. If someone would like to take a motion.
I would like to make a motion.
If we,
Can I ask a
have
question before
Sure.
we have a
Oh,
motion?
sorry.
I just wanted to make a clarification. We do not have to make a recommendation, but if we do want to make a recommendation, it has to be via motion. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So deliberation, you wanted to say?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. So, if, there are ways that they could approach adding this ADU without the zoning variance that would be less, that would, in my opinion, be less agreeable to the standards, et cetera, and then it wouldn't come back in front of us, right? So we're saying, or would it?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So if the zoning board says, no, you can't do this because it doesn't go along with the zoning requirements and they don't grant them that, and they do, some sort of addition that does fall
That is
within
compliant.
zoning, do they come back
It
in
would come
front of
back.
us?
Correct.
Commissioner Cohen,
Well,
could you
if
please?
they make an addition, he said if they make an addition, it comes back. If they do an ADU without, then it doesn't.
Yeah,
But
if it was materially different at all, it would come back. If it was very similar, just slightly reduced in bulk to meet the standards, it's something that the pre-review subcommittee would probably determine whether it comes back or not. But I would say that I can't see a way that they would reduce it, to get it down in bulk to meet the code requirements. I think it would be very dissimilar to what you're seeing now, and I think it would come back.
Deliberation, go ahead.
So, in my opinion, whereas I do think the addition meets the standards for preservation, I do not think that it meets the standards, A, where it is necessary or appropriate in the interest of historic conservation. So, I would not be for a positive recommendation for the major zoning variance. I do not necessarily feel confident that it is absolutely necessary, unless that can be shown that it is required. But in my opinion, I think that there may be options to achieve this, as been discussed, without, altering the historic property. So I think that would be my recommendation, either to not make a recommendation or, if it's possible, to make a negative recommendation. Now, whether that is referencing the setback specific or the building lot coverage, I will leave that to the discretion of the commission.
Thank you. Other deliberation? Commissioner Cohen, do you have more to say on this? All right, well, I'll add that I agree that I am not convinced that it is necessary or appropriate in the interest of historic conservation, letter A, under the standards. So I would be open to a motion.
I guess I'll make a motion that the Preservation Commission makes a recommendation to not approve the major variation of zoning, citing Code Section 615.11.5, Standard A.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I think we should do a roll call vote.
So the motion on the floor is for no recommendation. This is not for a negative recommendation. This is to make no recommendation and to defer this matter.
I thought that I made the recommendation for a negative approval, or for the land use to not approve. Sorry, there's double negatives and stuff, but.
Correct.
So the recommendation is for the Preservation Commission to send to the Land Use Commission to not approve the.
Land use commission, yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Understood. Okay. Does
Is
everyone
ev-
understand
is everyone clear on what
the
we're-
motion?
The motion? Okay. Go ahead.
Commissioner Zine.
Yeah, I second the no approval. Is that?
No, yeah, it's
Jamie
already
already
been
seconded.
second, so now we're voting.
Yes. It's a yes then for the no approval. Is that how you want us
Correct.
to vote? Okay. I just want to be clear.
Commissioner Morris.
Also, yes for no.
Commissioner Reinhold.
Aye.
Chair Driller.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen.
I vote against approval.
So aye. Yeah.
So that's aye.
Commissioner Klein.
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Bose-Carlson.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Do you have any questions for us right now? Okay. I'll follow with you tomorrow before the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. That is the end of old business. Moving on to new business, 1401 Ridge Court, Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres 0161. Could staff please read this case into the record?
1041 Ridge Court in the Ridge Historic District, case number 23 PRES 0161. Mark Dembski, architect and applicant, on behalf of the homeowner, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the home's west elevation fenestration, replacing existing jalousie windows, construct a bracketed gable overhang at the home's west entryway, and construct single and two-story additions to the home's northeast volume. The applicant further requests the following major zoning variations: a rear yard setback of 6 feet where 30 feet is required, and building lot coverage of 34.5% where 30% is the maximum permitted. The Preservation Commission is the determining body for the certificate of appropriateness, Code Section 288. Preservation Commission may, at its discretion, make a recommendation to the Land Use Commission, the determining body for the proposed zoning relief, Code Section 219-4E. When you're ready, Mark.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chair Driller. Can I hand out an exhibit that I didn't have in the packet?
For the record, Mark Dembski is submitting an additional piece of documentation to the Commission that addresses the buildable area on the proposed lot with the existing setbacks.
So wait till each have those. This diagram that you'll see demonstrates that the site is a difficult one in terms of the buildable area. That because it's not, it's a corner lot, and because it's trapezoidal in shape, a majority of the building as it currently stands is non-conforming and is outside the buildable area. So it's 27-foot setback from Ridge Court, 30-foot setback from the rear. It does meet the setback requirements from Greenleaf and from the interior lot line that abuts an alley. So the owners, so I'm joined by Amy DeMarco is here this evening and her daughter. They wanted to add on to the home, so we entertained a couple of different options to do that. This home is a ranch home. It's very anonymous. It is not a Myron Hunt home by any stretch, but it's equally as dear to the owners. And they wanted to respect the character of this home. So we looked at some options, and we'll see one in the presentation a little bit later, that we didn't want to turn the house into something that it wasn't. So looking at the volume of the house, it's not like its neighbors. So the neighbors on either side of it, both on Greenleaf and on Ridge Court, to the south and to the east, are much larger homes. So we're not trying to match that volume. We're not trying to match the fenestration. I mean, this is an early 1950s ranch home. They would like to add 2 bedrooms, a family room, and a kitchen. So we did look at adding purely a second story to it that kind of knocks out the ability to add a kitchen onto it, and it would still require variations for the front and rear yard setback because of the buildable area and really not conforming to the existing structure. So Cade, maybe we could move through. So we've proposed the addition here. If we looked at Greenleaf Street really as the front being the narrowest dimension of it, it would conform to a side yard setback, the addition that we're proposing, but because it's on a corner and both are treated a little differently, it's a 30-foot setback to the neighbor to the east on Greenleaf. So what we're doing here is showing the addition. We're pulling it back from the corner a little bit, obviously with some of the material change and things on the addition. We're trying to be sensitive to that. But the idea ended up being to try and keep everything that we're doing to the east of the ridge of the house, which runs north-south. So maybe we could go to the next. So this is how the roof line, the idea was to take the slope of the roof, and it's basically gable ends slope roof, and we want to continue that slope as it starts from the west to the east and create a new ridge that would be beyond the existing ridge. But as it turns the corner onto Greenleaf, we mimic the scale and the exact dimensions of the gable that is facing Greenleaf. That is the one that we see that faces due east in the backyard. If you move to the next slide, Kate. So these are the plans. You can see we've got a bedroom on the ground floor. We've got a kitchen and family room then on the ground floor. It's an 1,869 square foot home that we're adding onto. Second floor, there would be a master bedroom suite that we're kind of tucking into the lower eaves. The idea is anything that's on a second floor, we're pulling away from the perimeter of the building and trying to keep the gutter lines as low as we can, and we're taking that single-story gutter line around the house, both on Ridge Court and on Greenleaf. So these are pictures of the existing home. So it's got an 8-inch lap siding on the gable ends, and it's a masonry building. These are the neighbors. So you see the ones on Greenleaf here. This is to the east. Much larger home, and then it has a single-story garage that's immediately adjacent to the Hartenstein's property line. And so this drawing kind of shows it with that addition on from Ridge. So from the ridge of the home on Ridge Court, we're going up, about half a story. Compared to the home next door, it's a much smaller home. And same with Greenleaf, it's a much taller structure. The garage is actually more the scale of the home that's adjacent to the rear yard. So here showing the existing and the proposed above. We're continuing the asphalt shingle roof. That is the canopy over the front door that we can see that we want to add right now. It's just exposed to the weather. There's only an 8-inch overhang on the gable ends of the home. Here it is from Ridge Court, looking at proposed. You can see we really just want to continue that roof line up and then over toward the backyard. That's a close-up of the entry canopy that's proposed. So here it is from Greenleaf Street. So we've taken the existing gable, that same volume and same dimension, turned it 90 degrees to extend out into the back, and then tucked the second floor up into the volume that's created by those two. We want to reclaim as much brick as we can, and we're thinking at least use it as a base course there that would go below the windows that we're matching, and then use a different siding that would be in the same color family, but we'd distinguish that from the 8-inch siding by maybe using a 3-inch exposure siding. So in the palette, but not trying to mimic the 8-inch siding of the gable ends, because that's kind of a unique condition. Here's one from the corner, again, looking at how that volume would work. This is as we head east on Greenleaf. If you're kind of from the neighbor's vantage point, if the garage were missing, that's what it would look like. And then full elevations of the backyard. We've brought the roof line down, and which is why we have the dormer there for the master bedroom as well. We're trying to keep everything down as much as we can. On the right there, to the right of the addition that we're seeing, the gutter line is up because we're mimicking the gable that we see on Greenleaf. And that's another 3/4 view from the backyard showing the existing and the proposed. And then the side view. So this would be from the alley, which really isn't visible from the street, but that is the view from the south, looking at the building. And then we did do, we showed an example of what we could do if it were a little more conforming, which would mean no lot coverage variance, but it would require setback variances on the front and the rear. And that would be if, and again, function of it doesn't really work because then the kitchen isn't going to be on the second floor, but let's play this out. If we did just pop it up, it would look very much the same from the top, but it really starts to take the character of what we think is charming about the post-war ranch home, and it's making it something that we think it isn't Not that we couldn't make it nice looking, but I just don't think making it maybe more colonial is kind of the idea that the owners want to go with here too. So these would be some of the similar views to what we showed the proposed addition, the one that we'd like, with this one being more compliant. I should say too that currently it's 25%, I believe, is the building lot coverage. We're allowed 30, so it's under building lot coverage now. Some more of those views, and then again, similar elevations, kind of showing what it would be. So quite frankly, if it was decided that the second floor addition would really be the direction to go, I'm not sure that the owners would agree to move that way. It doesn't really work functionally for family room and kitchen addition that they want to do. But we did want to show that that option does exist.
Just to clarify for the members of the commission, the zoning code incentivizes owners to propose second-story additions atop the existing footprint by making that a minor variation rather than a major. So the applicant is choosing to pursue a major variation in this case.
So I'm not sure what else. I don't know if Amy, if there's anything else to add. Happy to answer any questions. Or,
okay. Questions from commissioners? Anyone have questions?
What's the increase in of the roof line with the new addition?
If we could go to the elevations, it's spelled out on there. Yeah, so we have 24 feet is the new, and then the existing, maybe it didn't show up on there. I think I had it on the application, but I think it adds about 8 feet or so to the ridge line.
Okay.
But it's I'm sorry. In that area, it's sloping backwards.
Correct. Yeah, so there's nothing new other than the canopy over the front door that is east, or I mean, is west of the existing ridge. And we did extend the chimney, the existing chimney that's there. We've built that up, as you can see, to accommodate the addition that would be behind it.
Commissioner Cohen, did you have a
So
question?
it's the first scheme that we're supposed to vote on. The second one is an academic demonstration of why the first scheme is better.
Yeah, the second one I understood
Correct.
was
Yeah.
what would happen if they were
Right.
pursuing the easier route from a variation perspective.
The second one is how the zoning code is currently structured. If that's what the zoning code wants, someone, if you look at all properties, it's just a commodity, that's what it wants you to do. But yes, he is choosing to do something different.
Because we're being asked to make a recommendation to the zoning board again in this case?
That you can, yes,
Okay,
that you
yeah.
could if you choose to.
So, but this is questions for the applicants. I have a question, but I want to let other people ask. So the question that I have on page 84, oh, that one right there. There is a line, the original ridge line that goes, so we're looking at the proposed here on top.
Right.
The original ridge line goes across, and then the proposed addition goes beyond that. And I see that the hatching is sort of indicated as broken somehow, but is it a continued?
It is continuous. It's purely a graphic. So the existing home I've built as a block, and then the addition is a block. And where the two blocks come together, as much as I tried, I could not eliminate it graphically. But it is meant to be one continuous plane.
It's a block in the CAD software you're using, is what you mean?
Right.
Yeah, because it's shown, right, but it's shown as sort of separate.
Yeah,
There-
it shouldn't be separate. It's not meant to be separate.
It's just, so you're changing it from a roof that is, you're altering the depth of the roof,
Correct.
in a sense.
Keeping the exact same plane and just moving it further back.
And it's going to be re-roofed
Yes.
With or re-roofed is the wrong, the new addition will have the same roofing material as the,
Correct. We'll probably end up re-roofing the house as a result
yeah,
of it, yeah.
yeah. But it'll be one continuous
Yes.
plane.
Yes.
Moving back. Okay, that was the only clarification that I had. Other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public here in person who would like to speak on this case? All right, was anyone signed up? No one signed up. Okay. In that case, we will move to deliberation.
I think this is exactly the kind of thing I want to see my neighbor do. I mean, honestly, you see lots of examples in Evanston of those second-story additions, and they don't look contiguous, and they look a little awkward, even if they've been there for 60 years. I really like your design quite a bit.
I would agree, because I've, after going through the bungalow belt and seeing all those pop tops and all those, incompatible additions, I do think that this addition is a great design. And it was in the packet that while this building is not currently contributing to the historic district, if it was resurveyed, it probably would be listed as contributing due to its mid-century modern design, but I think this addition would not take away from that.
I'll be a third voice in the same line. I think the original house as is absolutely adorable. I think that the addition is just so respectful of that massing, and to take the step to go forward with the major variance that might be more difficult just because it's a way better design. I think it's very successful.
Yeah. I think the addition is what we would describe as sympathetic to the original, and I think we should actually, in this case, think about making a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals, a positive recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as our, however we vote on the certificate of appropriateness.
We can do it the same way we did it last time, where we have two separate votes. I wanted to add, to commend you for reusing the brick. That's not something that everybody does. And it's, I hope that you are able to do that as much as possible. That is a positive thing that we want to see people doing. And also, I thought that a slight differentiation between the addition and the rest of the siding, between the addition and the original, is also very much in keeping with the way I would like to see preservation moving forward, so that there's just a little bit of a differentiation between the original and the new. That's my comment on that. Did anyone else have something to say? Did you have something to say, Aleka?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to echo what everyone else said. I thought it's a really sympathetic addition. What everyone else said, I completely agree with. Raising the chimney the way you did to sort of compensate for the raised roof, I think it works really well.
I was just going to say, and this might come into play more when we talk about the zoning variance, but I also think it's sympathetic to the historic properties around it in terms of the massing and the patterns and things like that. So I appreciate that.
Well, it seems like we've sort of concluded our deliberation. So does anyone have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to, in favor of offering them the certificate of appropriateness.
Thanks. Would you like to just go ahead and read what's there? Give us a sense of what
Thanks
we're
for your
voting on.
patience.
Sure.
Can I get a little training wheels on this?
So you just go ahead and read the first part of it that's underlined there, and then the part of the paragraph that's specific to the COA.
Got it. This is my first. So new business in 1041 Ridge Court, Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres -0161. Mark Dembski, architect and applicant on behalf of the homeowner, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the home's west elevation fenestration, replacing the existing jalousie windows, construct a bracket gable overhang at the home's west entryway, and construct single and two-story addition to the home's northeast volume.
Okay, you can, so then you're
Applicable
you're
standards?
suggesting that we approve a certificate of appropriateness for that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you can just skip down to the applicable standards?
Applicable standards, alteration 1 through 10, construction 1 through 8 and 10 through 15, and code section 6-15-11-5, A, B, and C.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen. I think we can go ahead and just do a regular vote rather than a roll call. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion carries. We can move on to deliberating on the, if we want to make a motion or a suggested path forward for the land use variation.
I just have a quick comment in terms of, I mean, thank you for doing all the extra work to show how a major zoning request is the correct way to do it. Visually seeing both, I think would help the Land Use Commission see why this currently proposed design is the one that's better, even though the zoning code is directing you in the other direction. So thank you for that work.
Yeah. I think the pass out that you gave us is a very strong argument to make before the ZBA, and it basically demonstrates that given the setbacks, because it's a corner lot, it's impossible to alter the house in any way under the current zoning.
I would like to add that I do think that the case has been made for the sheet that's the determination of special uses and variations under letter A, necessary and appropriate in the interest of historic conservation. So I would be in favor of making a positive recommendation for this major variance if we were to vote on that. I wanted to make sure that, is there any other deliberation? All right. Is there a motion to make a recommendation on this variation? You want to make a motion?
I'll
ahead.
go.
Oh.
I move that we make a positive recommendation for a major zoning variance under code section 6-15-11-5 A, B, and C for 1041 Ridge Court in the Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres 0161.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Cohen. All in favor? Aye? Aye. All opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We are approaching 9 o'clock, and in the past, we have taken a short 5-minute break at 9. So we can continue on to the next item, or we can take a break now and call that our 9 o'clock break. How do you guys feel about that? 5 minutes to stand up? I'm sorry?
I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Does that sound good? Okay, so then we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be back to new business. The next item will be 1231 Maple Avenue. Okay, next item on the agenda is 1231 Maple Avenue, Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres 0159. Could staff please read that into the record?
1231 Maple Avenue in the Ridge Historic District, case number 23 PRES 0159. Jeannie Petrick, architect and applicant on behalf of the homeowner, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the home's entry portico and construct an open roofed front porch at the home's primary street facing elevation. Preservation Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with Code Section 288. Jeannie?
Hi, my name's Jeannie Petrick. I'm here representing Stephen and Sarah, the homeowners of this beautiful property at 1231 Maple Avenue. Currently, they have a front portico that's somewhat of a colonial. If we did a little research with the Sanborn maps, it shows an existing porch was there originally. The house was built in 1889. And I can't speak for my clients, but I'm assuming, you know, with COVID and stuff, you really start to realize the importance of front porch and the connection to the community. Their street is a beautiful street with front porches on probably about at least 80% of the houses. And this house did originally have one. And so our goal was to bring back the original structure with respect of the existing house and the style and structure of the stick Victorian from the late 1800s. So as I guess, let me see. Let's go to the rendering. Is that the last or?
You just let us know what page since we're scrolling through.
Oh.
119.
So with respect to the house and respect to similar houses on the street, we kind of interpret like it would be all new wood structure where we're removing all the brick, concrete stairs that are originally there. We still want to keep the pediment at the front entry so that we can avoid having any kind of gutters or whatever to pitch the water away from the front entry. And then the detail in the pediment is reflective of what is original and existing up in the eave of the main roof line. We also want to replace, there was some siding that we believe was probably done later in time. If you look at the side existing, the south side existing pitched roof, there's shingles and on the north, correct, I think? Just the south. And we want to repeat that on the front as well, above those 3 windows under the main ridge. And then the style of the columns are something that are similar on the street, as well as would be more reflective of the stick architecture versus what was original, what is existing right now, which is more of a colonial column that we have. We're taking the front porch to the maximum that it can within the zoning restrictions. And the stairs, which are allowed to, are extend into the front yard setback. This rendering doesn't really show the tree and the size of it that is kind of right in front of where we're proposing that southwest corner post is. But we'll propose supporting, like doing a false support underneath the framing and so that we wouldn't damage the existing tree. That is our goal, is to save the tree as well. I don't know if we should scroll through all of the elevations. Maybe that'd be helpful. So these 3 are all 3 proposed. As you can see, like the front pediment detail, and then on both sides, the railing would stay the same. All the detailing is very similar to what is shown in the neighborhood, all wood construction, and then just a simple 1-inch square post at 3 inches on center. And then, Kate, I don't know where my, are the existing drawings? Yeah. Okay, so, and then existing, it has a pediment with columns, but with more of a colonial style pediment as well. And then it has a concrete structure with brick adhered to it. That we would all demolish and then And then we'd propose the new wood structure in front. Any questions?
Are there examples of other front porches with pediments on them on the block?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if I shared the neighbor photos as well, but yes, there are.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Yeah.
These are actually on Elmwood, but I took these photos because I was actually in particularly looking at the gridded detail over the pediment. These are probably a block away north of Dempster on Elmwood. And then I showed a few other. Those are still the same two. And then this is a house that's on Chicago and Greenwood. But you can notice they have the simple, similar gridded detail on the face of the main home, and then they repeated it again on the pediment at its front entry.
Yeah. Jean, I have one question, but first, I think this is a really nice job that you've done.
Thank you.
The question I have is about and maybe it's just graphics, but the original, Kate, can you blow that up? I wanted to ask you about the ionic column capitals.
Yes.
Are they really what you've shown? I've never seen anything like that in my life.
They're kind of cartoony, but they're similar, I'll say. No.
No, I mean,
They're not identical.
yeah, I mean, the ionic column capitals have remained largely the same for centuries and centuries and centuries, and this is a really strange version of it, and I don't know whether it's the graphics or whether this is some carpenter making one up on his own. If it is, in fact, a carpenter making one up on his own, it's the most unique thing I've ever seen.
No, it's a limit in AutoCAD.
It's
my
a
old
limit in AutoCAD. Oh, okay. So I guess my question would be, instead of constructing the square columns with the recessed panels, and then a square rather than a capital that has any kind of Cyma-recta curvature to it, why didn't you think, did you consider reusing these columns and then buying a Chatsworth ionic column for the corner? I mean, they're made out of materials now that will outlast the wood that your homemade column.
I'm following you.
That's your homemade. I forgot the term for it, but they're
fiberglass.
No, not
or the
fiberglass.
poly
The cast,
resin.
the resin ones. Yeah. I mean, the thing with your panelized column with the stuff wrapped around it is that in 5 years after moisture gets in there, it's going to come apart. And since they're ionic columns there now, I'd love for you to consider just going out and buying some really nice ionic columns, and unless you've decided it's totally inappropriate to the redesign you've done. So I mean, you're the architect, and that certainly wouldn't keep me from voting against giving you a certificate of appropriateness, because I think you've done a really nice job.
Thank you. I did actually propose us to use a column, but I know Sarah really wanted to stay within respect to the Victorian stick architecture, and there are some houses that are, I'm forgetting exactly where, but that have a very similar column. I think one is adjacent, right? Oh, yours, yes. They're neighbors, and then I believe across the street there might be squared, or the rectangular ones as well.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but both of those are rotted out at the bottom, the current columns.
So we would have to replace them.
They've been bonded. Yeah, so no, it's fine. It's just that when somebody is in the audience, it doesn't get recorded for public record. So if you would
Oh,
like
I
to
can-
speak,
or
just,
I can yeah.
or you can just, if you want to just repeat what she said, just go ahead. Yeah, and just say
Sarah
your name.
Utley. I'm the homeowner at 1231 Maple. Unfortunately, both of the current columns are rotten and have been bonded by prior owners already. And so I feel like they would need to have significant work done to them to reuse them. I myself am an environmental science teacher, so I want to reuse everything that we can, but in that case, I think it just wouldn't have any integrity left.
Chatsworth, Polystone. Get square ones. They'll last longer and they'll cost you less.
I have a question. I just was wondering what the roof of this porch is going to be, because I don't see that called out on the plan. I'm sure that it is. I just missed it, maybe.
Yeah, it would be called out on the elevation.
I mean, on the elevation,
And the
yeah.
wall section, it's asphalt shingles to match the existing roof.
Okay. I'm looking at the elevation right now, and I don't see it here, but it's maybe on one of the other drawings.
I'm
Other
sorry, I
question?
don't have it in front of me, so I can't
Yeah.
recall.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on this? Come on. Did you sign up to speak?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't see where to do that.
We have the sign-up sheet, but.
You can, there's another sign-up sheet. It should be right in front of you, so you can, oh, someone took it.
Do we have?
You can just, why don't you just state your name and address for the record?
Okay, my name is Jeff Hickey, and my wife Annette Remke is here. We both live at 1227 Maple. It's the home immediately to the south on the same side of the street. So I have just a few very brief thoughts. It's late, and I'm sure you'd all like to get home. You know, porches are a connection to the community. And I know that the porch we have an opportunity to connect with people that are walking down the street that we know from the neighborhood. And you can't do that from Sarah's home. It's a stoop. And one of the things that's remarkable is they took a beautiful full-width porch and replaced it with a stoop. And I would love to see it moved back to the way it once was. I also know that, you know, this is, I mean, we could conserve what's there, but my preference would be to go back and restore what was there 120 years ago. To me, that's a much better use of the porch. And finally, you know, I think the look of the porch is not in keeping with the neighborhood. It's this little colonial tack-on sort of thing, whereas most of the porches, almost every porch on the street, is a full-width porch with columns and many of them with 1-inch pickets. And I would love to see something that complements the neighborhood rather than, in my opinion, detracts from it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak? Okay, did we get any comments in writing? No. Okay, no comments in writing. Would the applicant like to respond to that comment, or? No, okay. In that case, we will move on to deliberation. Any comments from, discussion rather, from commissioners?
I'm just going to keep it short. I do appreciate what you were saying. I mean, I've walked this block again after walking it in a previous time for a previous application. It is a lovely block with a lot of landmark buildings, and you were right. I think restoring the porch would add very nicely to that community feel. And then also the addition at the top above the 3 windows. Numerous homes on the block also have decorations at the gable end, and so I think that's in keeping with the block and compatible also with the house. So.
Other comments from commissioners? I would like to add that I was happy to see the fake shutters go. Just as a side note, since we're talking about what we like about this project. Does anyone, if we're done with deliberation, we can have a motion? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness for 1231 Maple Avenue, Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres 0159. Applicable standards: demolition 1 through 5, alteration 1 through 10, and construction 1 through 8 and 10 through 14. Do you want me to read the description?
Yeah, just
okay. Jeannie
briefly.
Petrick, architect and applicant, on behalf of the homeowners, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the home's entry portico and construct an open roofed front porch at the home's primary street facing elevation.
That's fine. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Competing seconds.
Competing seconds.
Enthusiastic second.
I think we can take a regular voice vote on this. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the last item in new business, 1734 Asbury Avenue, landmark RHD 23, or RHD, Ridge Historic District, 23 Pres 0160. Could staff please read this case into the record?
1734 Asbury Avenue, a landmark in the Ridge Historic District, case number 23 PRES 0160. Charles Newhouse, Hanson Roofing, contractor and applicant on behalf of the homeowner, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to remove the home's existing slate tile roof, install an asphalt shingle roof in its place. Preservation Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with Code Section 288. Charles, when you're ready.
Yes, I am. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I've been with Hanson Roofing for the last 45 years, and I've run it for most of that time. And I'm here to represent the homeowners at the property and to let you know that they really, it would be a big burden for them to spend an additional $80,000 to put a new slate roof on. The roof right now, we've taken care of since they've owned the house, and it's just dilapidated and it needs to be replaced. It's a 2-story roof, and it's from the ground, the sight lines, you don't see a lot of the tile itself. And we were proposing to put, either a Grand Man or a real nice asphalt shingle roof. We can go with whatever you guys would like, because the homeowner just wants to put an asphalt shingle roof on. And on this roof, which it has a slate line, which we could put that type on, that had a slate roof on it. In the neighborhood, there's 14 homes. His is the only home with a slate roof on it right now. So I don't think it would detract from the neighborhood, and the big part of it is that we're changing all the inlay gutters. We're fixing all the carpentry below that. There's a lot of cornice work and all that other stuff. So we're fixing all that up, and we're restoring it, and we're putting new copper gutters in, and soldering all the seams and such, new downspouts. And he just doesn't have the extra $80,000. The project is over $75,000 as it is. He's a senior citizen, and he just doesn't really have the money to do it. So we're just hoping that you can grant us a variance so we can put an asphalt shingle roof on.
Hi, Chuck. Did you want to show us
Yeah.
what you're proposing? You want to just speak where the microphone is? Yeah, thanks.
This is like the slate that was on there, and it's deteriorated. This is a slate line roof, which is actually on this building right now. It used to have a Buckingham slate on it, and they changed it maybe 20 years ago or so. This is another asphalt shingle roof that looks nice. And this is called a Belmont, which is, kind of looks more heavy. It's a heavier shingle, and it's a 50-year roof. So it's a very long life, and it would be similar to the color of the slate. Oh, okay, sorry. You know, you can
So
see
would it,
both.
yeah, would it help if he just laid them out there with the?
Chuck,
do you-
is the thicker asphalt shingle roof that has more profile to it, more expensive roof, and what's the variation there?
This is about 1.5 times what a traditional asphalt shingle roof is like this. That's 1.5 times more. The homeowner would approve that. He will go with whatever you guys decide if you, in fact, let it go through.
And what would the increase be to go to a mineral fiber slate?
It's no savings. The mineral fiber.
No, not a savings. I know it's more expensive than the
No,
asphalt
it
roofs,
would-
but
it
it
would
looks a
still-
little bit more like slate. I mean,
It would still be an additional $80,000 because the material cost for a mineral type slate like a Da Vinci is more than the real slate.
no. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
The actual,
synthetic slates.
The synthetic slates cost more than, the material cost is more than actual slate.
Oh. Huh.
It doesn't, if I was to do the job, it doesn't cost you any less because our sheet metal is how we, the valleys, we solder everything, we're old-fashioned tinsmiths and stuff like that.
Yep.
Is the thickness of all three of these, what is it, currently quarter inch, the slate, right? And then,
The slate's 1/4 inch, yes.
and so then the thickness of all three would be, what, similar or,
This is thicker.
okay.
Thicker than.
And the owner's willing to do the thicker one, is that right?
Yes, we gave him a price for the Grand Manor, and we gave him a price for just the standard laminated asphalt shingle. And he said whatever you guys would approve would be great. And there is some asphalt shingles on this roof presently, which is the heavier one that was done maybe 15 years ago. But we're going to tear it all off.
Did you say the slate line is on the house currently, or
No.
the Grand Manor is on the house?
Yeah, the Grand Manor looks just like this, and it's a little bit thicker, and we would use the Grand Manor, made by the same company.
I have a question. So when we talk about thickness, we're talking about when you're looking at it in elevation, correct?
Yes.
All right, so the slate you said was 1/4 inch?
Yes.
And what is this one that you're talking about that's thicker?
This is probably 3/16. It's thinner.
Thinner, it's thicker than the regular?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so the other thing to consider is that I think a majority of the roof is not visible from
Well-
I mean, so I was just.
Yeah, let's finish asking Chuck
Okay,
questions.
sorry, just questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on page 140 of the packet, you show an original and then the comparing existing and proposed conditions with the Grand Manor. And that's the one that you said part of the roof has Grand Manor on it. Now it's not one of these, right?
It's very close to that one. It's the same style. Everything's the same. The Grand Manor is just a little bit thicker, made by the same manufacturer. I just didn't have a sample.
Okay. So do we have to approve, like the Grand Manor or like a specific?
I think you can, yeah.
So did you say you're tearing everything off, though? You're tearing everything off and starting again, though? So we don't have to
What?
match, I guess,
Yeah.
necessarily?
No.
You're tearing it all off, right? And starting completely over? Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about the exposure. On the sample you have there with the asphalt shingle and the slate, it looks like the exposure lines up to match. Is the slate currently an even exposure? It's not a graduated?
No, it's even exposure.
Okay.
I have a question about what is visible, actually. That was what I came here with, the question. And there was a, see if we can find that page. It's, I think, the first one. It's a kind of blown out photocopy. So can you help us understand what we're looking at here, please, Chuck?
That's a aerial view of the home, and it's just showing you the pitch and the dormers that are on it, and the inlay gutters around the perimeter. It's hard to see, actually.
But this was meant to show us what is visible from the street or what is going to be replaced. Can you?
Is there another photo in there? Hang on. Okay. Let me show you.
I mean, an aerial view from any Google or whatever could show you. I think if I heard during his presentation, I think he was just showing that to show the extent of what needed to be replaced. Is that right?
Right. So he's just showing me the photo of the front of the house, and I just wanted to get a sense of how much, by percentage, of the roof is actually visible. And how much of that is actually, yeah. So how much of the total is actually, corresponds to this by percentage? Is it 20%, 10%?
Of the roof?
Of the roof that we're actually looking at? Do you have a sense of that?
I would say, 15%.
Okay.
So I noticed when I looked at the house, there's currently slate on both the sides of the dormers as well as the roof. What's the material going to be used to replace on the actual side?
The same asphalt shingles.
Okay.
Is any of the stuff we're looking at now the Grand Manor?
No.
Kate, can you go to page 141?
I can show you a picture of it, though.
Chuck?
Yes.
On page 141.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, the upper roof is slate, the lower roof
Is
is
the
Grand Manor, and the same
yes.
thing in the lower image?
Yes.
Slate and Grand Manor, okay. I can only speak for myself. Stuff like this breaks my heart, but we can't in good conscience, I can't in good conscience tell somebody to spend an extra $100,000 on their roof. So what they're going to do is to match the Grand Manor slate that we see in the
Replace that
in the
as
upper.
well. Yeah.
So
It'll look like what's in the
Yes,
upper
it would be the same color.
thing. Okay, thank you.
And
Are there?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I guess that's it.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Would it be possible to just go ahead during our deliberation, just leave your samples there? Sure. Okay.
I have one more question.
Oh, okay.
The detailing at the ridges and the valleys, is that going to remain copper, or how would that be detailed?
On the ridge, the hips and the ridges would probably be asphalt shingles. But the inlay gutters would all be copper, new copper. And the other thing too is what I was going to say was that they're getting older and they sell the house, and if somebody wants to restore it, they can take that roof off and put a new slate roof on if they so desire, and that the sheet metal work that's done on the gutters and the downspouts would be good for 50 years. So it could go back to its original design.
What's the price difference between the traditional architectural shingle and the Grand Manor?
It's probably around $15,000 more.
Other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. So we're going to deliberate now. Did anyone want to have some comments? Commissioner Cohen, did you want to keep saying whatever you wanted to say?
I mean, in addition to the, what Mr. Cohen said about saving these people money, I mean, every other house doesn't have slate, and that seems to be what the commission usually does. And furthermore, most of the houses that I saw on the block have the more traditional style architectural shingle rather than the more expensive Grand Manor. So it would seem to me to be a little unfair to require the homeowner to take the more expensive route, unless, I'd be interested to hear why, if that was the case.
The only thing I recommend the commission is that the arguments you're making are not part of the standards. So whatever your decision is made, you should go back to the standards.
I think the ambiguity comes in Standard 6 where it says necessary and what necessary means. Yeah.
I was just going to note for the record that we're talking about standards for alteration number 6. Deteriorated architectural features shall be repaired rather than replaced wherever possible. And then in the event that replacement is necessary, the new material should match the material being replaced in composition, design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and so on. So that's the standard that
So that might help answer your question about the why, is that it might be more compatible in its visual qualities than the alternative.
The question, of course, comes, what was on the other roofs? We don't know that. So I think we need to just stick with what we've got here in terms of the slate. That's my sense of it. Did you want to say something?
Well, just, the way I see it is if the roof is such a big contributing factor to the significance of the home, I could see the argument being made for something that's more compatible with the slate. But since after hearing that, most of the roof is probably not going to be visible, it doesn't seem to be a problem either way. So.
I move we grant a certificate of appropriateness to 1735 Asbury Avenue, landmark RHD 23 Pres 0160, to approve the replacement of the slate roof currently on the house with Grand Manor shingles to look like those illustrated on page 141 of the submission. Applicable standards for alteration 1 through 10.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second, okay. I think we can do a voice vote unless anyone objects. Okay. So a voice vote, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that is the end of new business. We'll move on to approval of meeting minutes. Do we still need to approve them?
Yeah, we don't need to take an actual vote. You can ask if anyone has any amendments, and if there aren't any, then they can be adopted.
So even though this section of the agenda is called approval of meeting minutes, we don't have to actually take a vote to approve them?
It's approval by consent, yep.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments about the minutes from July 11th meeting? All right, seeing none, we'll assume those to be approved and move on to the discussion. No vote will be taken. A is the disaster recovery and debris management plan. Staff, you want to fill us in?
I'll keep it relatively simple. The city has been engaged in creating a disaster recovery and debris management plan. It's currently a draft document, so I wasn't able to share it in the packet, but there is an opportunity. There's a whole section devoted to the treatment of historic resources, both within the districts and landmark properties. And I think the purpose of putting this on the agenda was to ask if there was a commissioner or two who would like to review that in more detail and provide some comments on what that section might look like.
Whenever it is in a draft form that can be shared.
Correct.
So that we're not asking for something like right away, but eventually just an expression of interest. It would be great if we had an architect and a non-architect, if that's possible. Can
I would do
former
it.
commissioners do it?
Sorry,
Yes.
I would volunteer
Okay.
as a non-architect.
Okay, Commissioner Zine, thank you. Can former commissioners volunteer? So, former commissioners. They're all looking around now.
Are you volunteering someone?
Oh, they're not former commissioners yet, I'm told. That's true. Now, are any of the architect members interested in having a look at this disaster recovery and debris management plan when it's available? Help us out.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's I don't think it's as complicated as you would think. It's most of the debris management, assuming a very large natural disaster, is to collect all of that material and take it off-site as quickly as possible. The treatment of historic resources, it tends to be different because you might want to leave some of that debris on site to see what you can salvage, to try to figure out what material belongs to what house, allow for extensive photo documentation of those properties afterwards, and also disallow demolition, where demolition would be expedited for a lot of properties in an instance like that. And specifically in our region, I think the plan is focused on assuming a disaster of like an EF4, EF5 tornado that comes through is what they're looking at.
Would it be okay to have someone outside of the city of Evanston? I know someone who has worked with FEMA, doing Section 106 review, to just to see if she was potentially interested in.
So you're talking about pro bono?
Yeah. I'm just to see if she might be interested in giving some comments.
Previous mayor, Steve Haggerty. Yes, he has a company that.
Commissioner Cohen, you want to put on your microphone?
I was just recommending that perhaps the person to take a look at it would be the previous mayor, Steve Haggerty. He has a company that does disaster management.
So we do have a few ideas of who could have a look. This came up because we were talking about what happened in Hawaii recently and how some of the folks there have been, struggling what to do with their historic properties. So we thought maybe we'd have a look at what Evanston has.
Well, you don't
now.
have to go as far as Hawaii. For the first time in the 40 years I've lived in Evanston, we had a tornado watch. Never happened before. So it's all getting closer.
Well, in the history of Evanston, there was a tornado that went down, I think, Judson. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. So.
In any case, it just is a kind of coincidence that we were talking about whether, there is a disaster management plan in Evanston, and then they happen to be, as a result of what happened in Hawaii. So I think we've covered that, right? So we can move on to B, upcoming October Historic Preservation newsletter.
This again is relatively simple. The first newsletter was very well received. I heard that many council members included it in their ward newsletters as well. I think the plan or intent of this as a discussion topic is to create almost a schedule to try to keep this more regular, so that commissioners are able to say, yes, I have an interest in contributing, but also understand what the associated deadlines are for when a draft would need to be received, and also when that content would be need to be finalized to be included. And that schedule was included. I also included a series of which we've talked about maybe across the last 2 or 3 meetings, but a series of different topic areas that people threw out. So you don't have to stick to those. Those are just ideas. But if you have any ideas, just feel free to reach out. It'd be nice to, I don't know, what do you think, have?
Should we just have a quick look at that?
Yeah, sure. Have 2 or 3.
So the economic development department has already done videos for some of the pilot businesses for the legacy business, so perhaps just sharing those videos would be a good idea.
You know, I think that's great. The Legacy Business Program has come up a couple times when we were talking about our newsletter. I feel like we should have a sentence or two, sort of, you know, bringing folks up to speed that are receiving this newsletter. Are you available to offer some wording on that? That would be great. So he'll give us a little bit of that. And then I was just thinking about the timing. So if it's going to go out October 20th, am I reading this right, Kate? It would go out, so then the draft would be October 6th, and then we would take a week or so to kind of look it over.
Yep.
So is October 6th okay for you to provide something for legacy business? Okay. Other thoughts that could be items that folks can contribute by October 6th to Kate? Things you think that should be in it? You wouldn't necessarily write, but you feel strongly should be in the newsletter?
I unfortunately am going to be out traveling for a few weeks, so I definitely can't do something by October 6th. But I think I may have mentioned to you, I like it when people come in and have actually looked at the Sanborn maps, you know, when, yeah, and I think it'd be great at some point to put that in there.
There's also it's funny you say that, there's a really wonderful database that everyone I've shared it with has been like, oh, I've never heard of this, but the University of Illinois has the statewide historic aerial photographs that were taken. So they photographed the entire state of Illinois between the 1920s and 1935. It took about 15 years, I think. And it's a tremendous resource, and the quality of these aerial images are phenomenal. And it's a GIS supported website that you can click on the individual images. Wonderful resource. The University of Illinois also houses a lot of the Sanborn maps as well that are
Can you
accessible
share
online.
that with us in an email?
Yeah, yeah.
So for the newsletter, maybe we could do kind of a, you know, did you know this is available, of an available resource kind of thing? Does that sound like something that would be
Another
appropriate
thing
for the
that
newsletter?
might be interesting to include is how to research your house. The Evanston History Center has building files on a lot of buildings. I know that it's just an interesting resource if people are interested to learn more about their house, because it has the record of permits and whatnot. So, I mean, it's just a sentence or two, like go check out the archive at the
Here
History
are
Center.
some resources.
I think
that
that's a
you
great
want.
idea, because the whole point of this newsletter is to explain to Evanstonians why this commission is relevant. And I think that brings that home and makes it accessible for people, especially who are interested.
So, so we would have the legacy business, we would have some blurb about what we've been describing here, kind of available resources, a few quick links. Is that something that you could put in there? Okay. And then there will be a letter from me, and perhaps a partner spotlight. We could perhaps remind people that Ina Gutierrez was here a few months ago. Do a kind of spotlight on her really quick. That was in the last one.
But that is a good point. If anyone knows of any events that partner organizations in Evanston or elsewhere are doing, that if something you can just include, it's very easy to just kind of create this cross-pollination between other organizations that have similar missions to our own.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps Shorefront would be good partner spotlight for this time around.
How, is this a quarterly newsletter?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we were imagining.
Okay.
So it would have, you know, kind of a few different pieces. It wouldn't have to be comprehensive for everything.
I can't see this. I need glasses clearly, but I think one of the things was it the SHPO, whatever, the tax-free thing? I think it'd be lovely to have something like that in there. Maybe not this one. I can't write this one, but maybe the next one.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, Yeah, kind of an overview of that, the incentives, yeah.
I think that with one of our new incoming commissioners, she might be knowledgeable in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
world, so.
If we do need space, I'm the president of the Southeast Evanston Association, and what we do is advocate for, the preservation of of built spaces and natural spaces. So like it would dovetail well at some point if we need space, and it would be very easy for me to do.
All right, that sounds good. And if there's any of these things that we've been talking about that you're interested in writing, please, but if you can get it to Kate by October 6th, that would be great.
I just wanted to mention regarding that, is it SHPO? Someone correct me if I'm
Mhm. Yeah,
wrong.
no,
Okay.
SHPO.
I did talk to them because I'm trying to do this for my own house, but they offered to do a presentation for Evanston, or I don't know, there's maybe an opportunity we could. They know there's a lot of historic properties here. I think they deal with a lot of homeowners here. So I don't know if it's through the library or, we could potentially get some meeting, or maybe they come here. I'm not sure. And we advertise that. I don't know, but it's an opportunity we can explore.
Yeah, we were actually going to have a speaker the way that we had before a few months ago, but when we saw that the agenda was going to be kind of long tonight, we decided so she's going to come next time. That's a Landmarks Illinois, yeah. So we can invite the SHPO to send somebody here for that, kind of speaker series that we're trying to start too. That's great. Well, that's. Did anyone else have anything to say about the newsletter? Okay. All right. Well, then I would call meeting to adjourn at 9:43 p.m. Thank you.